So I'm excited to see all your faces here today, and I want to tell you that today, for the first time ever, I'm trying out a new format for this talk that I'm going to give you. So usually I go a little more like nitty-gritty, so you want to make a project kind of details, but I found that those really do come out in the Q&A section, which we'll have plenty of time for. So I'm going to try to give you more of an overview of Kickstarter and what people are using it for. So maybe during the Q&A, if you hated what I just did, just let me know. Or if you loved it, let me know, because if you like it, I might try more of it in the future, because I realized that what I spend a lot of my time doing is looking at projects and being excited about projects, and that's where I learn about Kickstarters through projects. So I thought it would be a good approach. Also new today is I just wanted to start on our homepage, because I don't know how many of you have seen this, but last week we relaunched our new homepage, sort of as we're approaching 3 years, let's have a new homepage kind of thing. So this is it, and the idea with the new homepage is land right on our website, discover more projects, right? So right away, rather than the usual just seeing projects that we love, we want you to see projects that everyone loves. So the first is projects we love. So this is important because these are things that we think are really stand out, have really significant stories behind them, have really great videos, have really exceptional rewards, things that we think are good Kickstarter projects. So if you're wondering what a good Kickstarter project is, this is stuff that we as a staff think is great. For those of you who are enjoying the music we were just listening to, it was this project. So check it out. Then you will see what's around you. And I'm obviously registered on Kickstarter as a New Yorker, but if let's say you were on this website, you would see what's around you. So you would see Chicago. So this is some of the big projects in your area. You'll see what's popular in general across the site. And then a new feature we also launched recently called Friends, Find Your Friends. So I'm connected, so these are all the projects my friends are backing, which is really fun because you can see, obviously your friends probably like the same things you like, so you can see what people like you are doing on Kickstarter, so it's really fun. So just a quick plug for our exciting new homepage, into the presentation. So. Again, my name is Stephanie Pereira. I'm the director of the art program at Kickstarter, and Kickstarter, I hope you all know, is a platform for funding creative projects. So creative being a key word there. There's 13 creative categories. If it fits in one of those, you're golden. And projects being the other key word, of course. Something that is finite, right? It has a beginning and an end, something you can point to and say, it's done. Kickstarter also, a Kickstarter project includes rewards. And these rewards are not just things you kind of give away, not swag, but things that benefit you as much as they do the backer, the person who's pledging money to your project. Really key idea about Kickstarter. Another key idea about Kickstarter is that the funding... I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that. The rewards part? A Kickstarter project includes rewards for the people who pledge money to you. So when someone gives you $25, they get something in exchange. And I'll get more into that. But the idea being that those rewards should benefit you, the creator, as much as the backer. Another really important thing to know about Kickstarter is that the funding is all or nothing. And this is a big sort of talking point. This is a thing that a lot of people really focus on. The idea being when you create a project on Kickstarter, you set a goal and a period of time to reach that goal within, usually about 30 days or so. So in this example, which is to put on a 24-hour cycle of waiting for Godot, they have $575 left to raise and just 10 hours to go. If they did not raise that $575, none of those 62 backers would be charged. Everyone just walks away. It's like nothing ever happened. You have to meet your goal in order to get any of the money. You can get overfunded on Kickstarter, but you at least need to hit that minimum. This project did get funded. They always do when they get to this point. It is part of the magic that is the all or nothing model. So we have been around for 3 years. Saturday was our 3-year birthday, and since then we've seen some exciting success. To date, over $200 million has been pledged by almost 2 million people to over 50,000 projects. I just got an email now saying that our success rate has gone up. Now it's something like 56% of projects on Kickstarter are successful. So to date, we have over 20,000 successful projects on Kickstarter, which is quite exciting. We see about $3 million come through the site each week. There's 4,000 projects live at any given time. Of those nearly 2 million backers, almost 400,000 of them are what we call repeat backers. Those are people that have pledged money to more than one project. And that is a number that is growing and growing and growing. And that's actually one of my most favorite numbers, because what it says to me is that we have a community of people not only making projects, but also people who are supporting projects. So there's a true creative community emerging on the site. I also, to give you a sense of these numbers and how they relate to our growth over time, in July of 2011, we announced 10,000 successful projects since we launched. So now only, how many months later, we're already at 20,000. For our 2-year anniversary, a year ago, we announced $50 million pledged and $50 million pledged, right. So now we're at 200 million. In October, we announced 1 million backers and $100 million pledged. So in October 2011, that's where we were. We're at nearly 2 million now. We're about to hit 2 million. I think that number is actually 1.9 and at $200 million. So it's been quite, exponential growth, which I think is really cool. An important thing to know, too, is that we do charge a fee for this service, but only if you hit your goal. So only if you hit that magic number do we charge a fee, at which point we do charge 5%. And Amazon, who's like our banker, will charge between 3 and 5, depending on how your money falls out.
Above and beyond 5%?
We charge 5%, and then Amazon charges between 3 and 5. So it works out between 8 and 10 total. Also, to give you a sense of just how this works across the categories, I mentioned earlier we have 13 creative categories on Kickstarter. This is them listed alphabetically. So you can see film is the biggest category in the site in terms of money, and nearly, let's see, what does it say for music there? And projects launched. Music is number 2 at 38 million with 13,000 projects launched, but music actually has slightly more successful projects. Music budgets are usually more modest than a film budget, so film is a little bit more of a risky prospect, but we're seeing so many, and film has been really, really, really just successful in general with 17 films at Sundance this year, 31, I believe, at South by Southwest. I think 12 at the Tribeca Film Festival this past week. So really, we had 3 Oscar nominations this year, and this isn't the first year of this kind of energy. So it's been pretty incredible in film. Actually publishing just surpassed art as the 3rd biggest category, though design and games are biggest in terms of money pledged. This is huge. Games, this just happened in the past 4 or 5 months. When I started a Kickstarter in September, games was one of the smallest and most insignificant categories in terms of numbers, though it was the most energetic. And it's just in the past few months that this energy has blossomed into $20 million pledged to just 1,800 projects. I mean, that's kind of insane, right? So all that said, these big numbers, I did want to point out that the this is successful projects by amounts raised. The majority of projects are in this $1,000 to $5,000 range. So people aren't raising huge amounts of money at a time. It's just there are a lot of projects. This is the $5,000 to $10,000 range. So if you work your way over this way, this is 2/3 of all the projects on the site are $10,000 and below. This is nearly half in the $1,000 to $5,000 range. So lots of smallish projects, not a lot of behemoths. This sliver, and this chart is from July. This sliver represents $100,000 and above. Then it was at 23. Now we're at over 100 projects. But still, it's just a sliver. Really, this is where you're seeing the action. So project reward, yeah?
Do you have a percentage of success?
Yeah, 56% of all projects succeed.
Which category, or small projects succeeding at a higher rate?
I can tell you, like dance, the budgets are usually around $2,000, and it does $2,000 goals, and it does have the highest success rate on the site. So I could tell you anecdotally off the top of my head, but we do have that information. Yeah. So film, anyway, we can talk about it. So rewards. So to get a little deeper into rewards, what do people offer rewards when I talk about benefiting you and your backer as well? So most commonly, it's a copy of the thing. So hey, I want to write a book. If you pledge, $10, $15, $25, you can get a copy of this book. I want to make a movie. You can download the DVD for $10, or you can get a copy of it just for yourself for $25. Or maybe you get a copy with a limited edition cover for $50, right? A copy of the thing is the most common way people exchange value on the website. But it's also a creative experience. And this is a big thing thing about what drives it. It is that limited edition cover. It's the signed thing. It's coming to a concert that's only for backers. I've only backed film projects if I can go to a screening. Like, I'm not someone who collects DVDs. But I would love to go to a screening with other people who are fans of the project, and also to see the directors there, the people who starred in the film. That sounds exciting to me. It's also about a shared story. So people will often pledge small amounts of money to say, I was part of this. They can have some sort of token or some sort of memento. So this is drawing on both that patronage stuff, like I made this happen, as well as the thing that you get in exchange, the tickets to the show, or the limited edition print, or the open edition print, whatever that thing you're getting in exchange for your pledge. So the backers that I keep referring to, the majority of them are 75% to even 85% are from your own personal network. So these are your friends, your Facebook friends, your Twitter followers, your family. If you're a blogger, people who follow your blog. Maybe if you're someone who's lucky enough to have people writing about you, maybe on their blog or some sort of press. That's where the majority of your support is going to come from. So when you're structuring a Kickstarter project, these are the people you keep in mind. Some people do think about sort of this invisible internet world, and they're like, hello, internet, this is my Kickstarter project. Most likely you are talking to people you know. So when you are structuring your rewards and thinking about what do people want, you should really have those people in mind. It's not until it looks like a project is going to succeed that those other people come in, the Kickstarter community, the friends of friends. Maybe you get some extra press uptake. And one way that you get to keep in touch with all these people once they've supported your project is through something we call project updates. My boss likes to call it the creative process in your inbox. I like to call it a blog. But basically, when someone pledges money to your project, they're automatically subscribed to your project updates, and they are delivered directly to your inbox. So it is a way that people often share process stories like, hey guys, hey backers who supported my film, this is a photo, we just had our first day shooting, it was incredible. Or here is a video of me in my studio musing on the new work I'm about to create. Something like that, some sort of creative engagement. People often will share, like if they have rewards that they made and they want to tell people about, they'll often share updates about the process of that. So that's sort of the overview of what Kickstarter is, and here's where I'm going to get into some of the stories. For our year 2011 year in review in January, we were looking back at the year of 2011. We're like, what did we see happen? What was exciting? What were some trends that emerged? We identified a few things. One of which was dream big. We saw people proposing to buy entire islands. We saw people proposing to make a giant floating pool in the East River in New York. And the cool thing about this is 1,200 people were like, that's amazing. I want there to be a giant floating pool in the East River in New York. Not that this is anywhere near being completed. This is not a tangible thing. This is a dream. But 1,200 people were excited enough about this dream that they pledged money to it. This is another one I like to show as far as a dream big sort of thing. This is the promise of space exploration, but brought down to the human level. So what this guy is proposing is at various levels you can participate in this creation of this shuttle-worthy thing, space-worthy thing that he's going to send into space. It will be, you could, for I think $1,000, you could get one of these chips as part of this thing he's sending into space, and it will collect data, it'll record data. You can be part of this exploration, this space exploration. This was another trend we identified was DIY manufacturing. And not only that, but DIY manufacturing in the United States. So not only are people saying we could make this on our own, but we could make it right here. So this was a project called Window Farm. Some of you may have seen it. But basically it's a hydroponic gardening system that hangs in your window. It's quite pretty to look at. It's a design object. And the internet went crazy for this. And just as it was about to hit $200,000, the woman behind it, a woman named Britta Riley, she sent a video through one of her project updates, aka her blog, where she just was like chanting 200K USA. And then she was like, okay, seriously though, if we get to $200,000, it means I can make this in the United States. And guess what? People said absolutely. So I think she was at 167,000 when she sent that video out, and it skyrocketed over 200,000 pretty quickly. This is another one of my favorite DIY manufacturing projects called The Present. It's part product design, part art project. This is a guy, he designed something, he calls it an annual clock. It is a clock that you can see there's only one hand and it takes an entire year to go around the face. and each color represents a different season. This, being summer, this being winter. He actually worked with he wanted it to be USA produced, and a lot of it is, but for the clockwork piece, he worked with manufacturers in Germany to actually design something that had never been designed before. This idea it's called the annual movement, the thing that controls the movement of the clock. So it was pretty exciting. Another one of the trends we identified was civic projects. People were saying, I have an opportunity to get engaged with the world around me, to make my community better, my neighborhood, my city, whatever it is. One of the biggest cities, incidentally, that got behind that was Detroit. We saw, I forget how many projects in Detroit last year, but it was unbelievable, and it was everything from gardening to art to mapping to buying property, one square inch at a time. I really like this project. This was a proposal for a public library, essentially, or a reading room. So it was bringing that sort of energy of just kind of exploring and reading and relaxing in social space to an outdoor space. So it makes it a more incidental, less destination-oriented thing. And it was a design proposal for what something like that could be. This was great. This is a designer saying that the Dallas Pedestrian Network doesn't have a good map. And really, he was asking for just $1,200, and that was printing costs. It was like, I've designed it. Here it is. Like, I think it's cool. Pledge $5, and you can get a copy of the map in the mail. Pretty straightforward. But this is like this sort of civic, like, I'll do it. I just need the printing costs covered, right? We also saw stuff ripped from the headlines. This was the fourth trend that we saw. People were really responding to the news. This is about timeliness. So this is after the disaster, the earthquake, and the resulting tidal wave in Japan, and all the radiation situation happening. So this was a proposal to not only build a network of a map of radiation information, but also a device, an open source, a hardware device for measuring radiation. And once you measured that, inputting it onto the map so that people in the community could have a sense of where was safe and what was not safe and what was really going on, and be able to contribute to this overall information source. Another Rip from the Headlines project, it was a documentary project about the artist Weiwei. This is an incredible project. I highly recommend you go on the website and look at the updates. Because as the project is funding, and since then, this is an artist who's been in the news quite a bit. So we're watching stories break. We're watching things happen through this project. So this is very much about the timeliness of a story and how you can connect with it in this kind of way. So moving on into 2012, we've seen a continuation of some of these trends. This is a civic project. This is also a Dream Big project. This is basically someone saying, for those of you, there's the High Line in New York, above ground park. They're like, what about the Low Line? So there is an abandoned train station in New York in the Lower East Side. These guys found it. It's in pretty good shape, and sort of they've made a proposal to rehab it and turn it into an underground park. And so they have all these ideas about how you're going to bring light underground and how you're going to make it fun for people to hang out in. And again, dreaming big. They're nowhere near realizing this project. There's millions of dollars that need to be raised still. But this was about saying to the community, let's show that people want this, and let's get some funds together to get it going. Basically what it was. 3,300 people responded. Air Quality Egg, this is about DIY manufacturing as much as it is a civic project. This is about ground level air quality monitoring. So it was basically inviting people to start caring about measuring ground level air quality. So they proposed the idea of building these little sensors, which are in the shape of an egg that you can put on your windowsill or your front stoop, and it would collect data from the air and send it over the Wi-Fi network to a shared database. This database is open, so it has an open API, so any developer could then access the data and build interactive tools for saying, is today a good day to ride my bike, right? Is today a good day for my garden? So this is, for this project, and I work with these guys on this project, it was as much about launching a community of people having this dialogue about air quality as it was about getting these sensors into the world. They told me, frankly, they're like, we could fundraise somewhere else, but we don't want to. We want to fundraise on Kickstarter because we want people to be part of this story. So you can see, though, for $1, and I'm one of these $1 people, you get to test some of the applications they come up with. So I get to be part of this story. The DIY manufacturing thing and also the USA thing has stuck with us in a big way as well. This is a project that's live right now. high quality men's underwear, made in America though. And if you watch this project video, it is much about manufacturing and what local manufacturing looks like as it is about a nice pair of underwear. So it's really it's fun. This is a new trend that we've seen. We saw it sort of happening at the end of 2011, but we're seeing it a lot in 2012, and it's about journalism. So it's not only about funding high-quality, long-form journalism, deep investigation, as it is, it's also about ongoing investigation, platforms for new work and new audiences for engaging with that. So this was a project called Matter. The proposal is they would write one long-form science or technology piece each month, and it would be delivered to you. It was a pretty straightforward proposal, so within one day, their goal was $50,000. They hit that handily. They obviously were way overfunded, and I think for $10, you got their first piece, and I'm pretty sure I pledged for that level, because, I mean, it sounded pretty great to me. I would, of course, be remiss if I did not talk about our newest trend, which is the $1 million projects. So since February, we've seen 5 projects hit the $1 million mark and go over. This is the most recent. It is a watch. It's currently funding. I took the screenshot today. It's $7.5 million. Some people are predicting it's going to go to 8.5. Some people say 9. Everyone's taking bets. Where will this end? It has 17 days to go. But this is a big trend right now. And that's where we're at, the current state of Kickstarter. So can we turn the lights on and then I'll do... Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming today.
Absolutely, I'm happy to be here.
So I guess I have a question in that I've backed 2 projects and they've both been produced and I have them, I own them.
Congratulations.
Yeah. But I guess my question is more about the budgeting, and then also, because generally people, like, I think a movie is something where people say, we need like travel expenses and sort of give like a vague description, and you think, oh, okay, that sounds reasonable to me.
Right.
But how do people figure out what those budgets are, and do you give them guidelines? And then what happens if, I guess I've been lucky in that what I paid for I actually have like the tangible result of, but what if you under budget, or things happen, or and so then you've promised all these people these great gifts, and now you're like, shoot, we don't have enough money. So,
yeah, no, that's a good question, and it's one I get a lot. With things like movies and music and books and those sort of things, the people in the position of making the projects usually have a pretty good sense of how to budget. A lot of, if someone's making their first feature film, they know, like, it's going to cost me this much money to do color correction, so I'm going to do a Kickstarter for that, and they know that they have other kind of funding sources lined up. People have run into snags on the manufacturing side for sure, in projects sort of getting bigger. They just didn't sort of understand the scope of what they were trying to pull off. I think The Present, which is a project I just showed you, is a case where actually there's a great design blog that did an interview with him, and he's like, what happens when your project turns into a product? And he suddenly has all these things to deal with he didn't plan when he launched his Kickstarter. We are learning a lot from watching people go through that process, and on the product design things, we try to support people as much as possible. But people have learned a lot. I think that other product designers have learned from watching each other launch things and hit walls. And what our general those people have hit walls. Our general advice is just stay transparent, stay communicative, and what we have seen is the community will be very welcoming and very positive in response. As long as you continuously send updates, they'll actually be excited to come with you along the creative journey. They may send advice like, oh, I saw that you're having trouble with printing or mailing. Here's my idea for that. I was part of a comics project that went terribly wrong. She emailed us right away. Within 3 weeks, the project was 17 times better than what she had originally proposed and what we had originally funded. But it was because she had stayed in touch with us, and then people were saying, oh, I see that this is your problem, and we help you with it. So that's, it's about communication, it's about transparency. People are usually happy to go along for the ride.
You say she got in touch with us. You're saying that Kickstarter provides this kind of technical...
Oh, no, I'm sorry, not us. I was speaking as a backer. She wrote through a project update. She wrote to her backers. I'm usually speaking as a backer. I'm like a super backer. Yeah. Yes?
A lot of the projects that I've seen are individuals or kind of groups of individuals, and I'm wondering if you could speak a little to organizational use of Kickstarter
Sure.
and particularly how successful organizations have potentially changed their tone for the Kickstarter community specifically, or use that in tandem with their other funding sources?
Yeah, I think that the biggest conversation I have with organizations is that in a Kickstarter story, you're putting a person up front or people up front, and you're putting a project up front. And every idea you're sharing is through that lens, which is not, and it's also not a general lens, it's a very specific personal lens. And the key there is, so when you make your video, what faces are going to be in your video? Which reminds me, I didn't show you guys the video. I have a video. But the video is a lot about faces. It's a lot about people sharing their ideas, sharing their passions. So the key for an organization is to figure out how to do that. Some organizations have opted not to, and then they do fine. So for instance, I worked with an organization in Minneapolis called Northern Lights, which had a project called Northern Spark, which is a public art festival, a Nuit Blanche style festival, so sunset to sunrise. And they basically, for their Kickstarter video, used their promo reel, which is quite beautiful. It's professionally done. It shows a lot of art. It shows a lot of people enjoying art. So they brought faces in that way. I talked to the guy about it. He didn't have resources to record a new video. But then through his rewards, he pretty much looked at the spectrum of artists participating in this public art festival, and in each of those rewards, you can engage with one of the artists through some sort of limited edition print or object or coming to a dinner party. There was like different kinds of ways you can engage with specific artists, which was really quite, for a free festival, I thought was a really good sort of solution. Yeah, and then I also, another reward he came up with, which I would love for institutions to take and run with, is at the $10 level, you could get a bike light. But the thing was, if you lived in Minneapolis and you show up at this festival, there will be sort of like a critical mass style bike ride, and these lights are synced up. So as people are riding along, there's a light show happening across all the lights. So it's a way to invite participation and really make people part of the story and part of this critical mass bike ride that they're trying to make happen overnight, which is really quite beautiful. So I think like institutions thinking more like that, thinking about the public as participants in the experiences they have to offer, is something that I've talked to a lot of nonprofits about. Yeah. Yes?
Hi, first of all, thanks. I have some friends who have been able to realize some life dreams because of Kickstarter.
Incredible. That's really great.
Then I have kind of a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
Any individuals who are putting together projects, have they run into any conflict of interest if they're perhaps already in artist unions or have agents or otherwise, successful artists?
Right. Yeah.
And then likewise, have you as Kickstarter run into any sort of competing interests with the industry giants? Or?
To the first question was about independent artists and if they already have, let's say, gallery representation or an agent or something like that. My advice, because I work specifically with visual artists, my advice is always work it out with your gallery ahead of time. And whether your gallery still takes a cut, and many galleries will want to, is something that you need to figure out with them. I think if they do want to take a cut for the better, they're going to help you promote your project. They're going to help you sell your work like they always do. So maybe it's like just being sort of on it. No one's had any problems. I don't think anyone's launched a project without talking to their record label or whatever first. On the industry side of things, it's interesting. I think that industry is either rabid for this, because they're seeing, wow, this is an incredible way to get audience engagement before a project has even happened. So they want more. And then on the other hand, they have all these legal hurdles and all these concerns and all these issues and all these bottom line price things that they're concerned about. So I think industry is sitting in this space right now where they're very aware of how powerful this is, but they're also not diving in yet. So I don't think there's been any, the closest example has been our first really huge video game project, which was a video game design studio, which usually what they'll do is they'll come up with a game concept, and a game publisher will pay them a lot of money to make the game, and then they'll just get a cut of the proceeds. They had an idea that nobody wanted to publish, but their fans really wanted them to make. So they took the project directly to the fans, and that was fine because they don't have like ongoing contracts with publishers to only go through them. Yeah. Yes?
You mentioned a couple of times that you have worked personally
Mm-hmm.
with people doing projects.
Sure.
How does someone starting a Kickstarter project get the attention of the staff, either for like that homepage, how do you find a project?
Yeah.
And also, how do people get to actually interact with you directly?
Yeah, so as far as getting on the homepage, we do have a couple people that make it their business to try to look at every single project. And just in case, the rest of us are constantly sending those people really good projects. All of us on staff are responsible for staff picks. So for sure, we're always looking through what the staff picks. And to be a staff pick just means you have to be not only an interesting project, but also a good Kickstarter project. So it has to be a good video and rewards that really offer this idea of an exchange of value. So that you're thinking creatively and imaginatively, people are really getting something for their $10 or their $25. As far as talking to me personally, most people who I advise are people who have met me in situations like this. I was saying earlier, I never say no. So at the very least, I try to send people, I have a list of links. I'm like, hey, it was really nice to meet you. Here's this great list of links. I think that one of the beautiful things about Kickstarter is that all the information is right there. So very different from writing a traditional grant writing process where it's all kind of black box. You know, I'm over here writing my grant, you're over here writing your grant, we all send it in and we don't know what happens. In the Kickstarter world, you're all putting your stuff online and you're all watching people's projects succeed or not succeed or whatever. So you all can like learn from each other. So usually my list of links is, here's some awesome projects that sound a lot like your project. Here's our Kickstarter school, which is our online resource for learning how to make good projects. I'll navigate to that while we're talking. For some people, I'll, go above and beyond that, but there's only me. So the way to get to school is you click on help and then scroll down. And you'll see our school. You can also type it in to the URL. It's /help/school. Yeah.
You mentioned that one of the most important things is to make sure that people are getting a good value for the $10 or $20 or whatever they pledge. But you also mentioned earlier in the presentation this sort of mixed motivation where people are buying something, but they also want to be patrons. Yeah. They're also just giving something.
Right.
Have you noticed a difference in the balance of those two things among the different categories of project?
Yes. I would say on the product design side of things, you're mostly getting sort of a pre-sales kind of situation, like that Pebble watch I showed you. People are mostly just pledging to get a watch. They're excited to be part of the story, but they mostly want a watch. On the nonprofit touchy-feely side of things, you're going to get more of the traditional fundraisers. And that's fine. You could run a traditional fundraiser on Kickstarter where, for $25 you're going to get a thank you note in the mail. You're only going to be able to do that once. Like you're going to get the same results as doing an annual appeal. It's a traditional donation model. It's not a sustainable practice. If you could bring those two things together, where you get to be part of something exciting, there's an exclusive experience. I was showing before we came in. I was showing off Amanda Palmer, the musician, just launched a new project, and something Amanda really understands is her Kickstarter is an exclusive space. For this 30 days only, you have access to only through pledging through this project do you have access to these things she's offering. So she's offering very personalized experiences, special limited edition versions of her work. You're funding it, you're making it happen, so you're getting to be part of the story. So it's that I was part of Amanda Palmer's project. I pledged to that video game project I mentioned earlier. I hate video games, but I wanted to say that I was part of that story. This is similar. I'm not necessarily, I like her as a person. I'm not into her music, but I'll probably pledge to this project because I want to be part of it. So this kind of thing where you can you understand that this is a limited engagement. This is a 30-day opportunity to get very close to something or someone that you care about. Once you understand that psychology, I think you will do well. So there is a spectrum of projects. This sits kind of nicely in the middle, I think. Yeah?
So I guess it's sort of narrow-minded, but when you're talking about these dream big projects, that had never occurred to me. I mean, I think I'm going to give you $10 and I want this thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad so many people are doing that.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just wondering if, for instance, like the pool in New York or other
Right.
things like that, have those actually gone on to then get like support from the city or support from larger organizations to actually have them realize?
Yeah, I don't actually, the Questpole story, as much as I love it, I don't know what they're up to right now. I'm sure that they're working on it. I can tell you the Lowline story because it just happened. So people are pledging for commemorative stuff. Like it was very much the t-shirt and the tote bag for $25, get a t-shirt that's like, I was part of this. I made it. I launched this project. And I do know that because of all the news coverage, all the attention that came around this project, the doors opened for them. And they have the sort of funds to go through with all the sort of red tape and early work that needs to happen for that project. So for the dream big kind of stuff, that's really a really big part of it is the eyes on your project, for sure. Yeah. Yes.
So maybe related to the school, but do you Kickstarter look at these projects before they launch or get posted? Like, do you edit and say, you know what, this is not going to work at all? Or
to a degree, we do. I was showing someone the other day, there's currently 1,000 submissions in our submission queue. So before you launch a project on Kickstarter, you need to submit it for approval. And that approval is, does it meet our guidelines? Is it a creative project, number one? First and foremost, is it a creative project? Is it a cause or a charity? We do not allow causes or charities. So you can be a nonprofit, but you have to be running a creative project. Number three, fund my life. No fund my life. No pay for me to go to art school. No pay for me to travel around the world. And finally, no prohibited items. So you can't make a Kickstarter to like make weapons, for instance. And there's like not a super long list, but a very standard list of prohibited items. So we're really primarily reviewing for that. That said, our customer service team, I sit with them every day. They're amazing, incredible, inspired people. They pledge money to all these projects. Because we care so much, when we click the approve button, we will often give someone a little bit of advice. Like, hey, project looks great, totally meets our guidelines. You might want to consider thinking about your rewards. Here's a link to the rewards section of our Kickstarter school. Check out these other things, right? So we give a little bit of advice. We can't get too into it because we have to just constantly be clicking approve, deny, approve, you know. So we do a little because we care, but not more.
Are there examples of educational products like or projects? So you pay for this and you get this lesson.
Yeah, there was recently one that I was lucky enough to work on a little bit. I went down to MICA to do like a workshop for students there, and see if I could find it. Let's see. Oh, I know where it would be. And we talked a lot about that. We talked about how sometimes educational projects go wrong in that they just don't know what to offer in their rewards. And so they'll be like, have some stickers, right? Like stickers are usually things that people print and give away for free, hence my giant pile of stickers outside, right? So what we talked about is how can you offer the curriculum, right? Really engage, like what are the goals of your project? The goal of this project, let me find it, was to make mnemonic devices for kids who have dyslexia, who have trouble reading. So they were going into a school, they were doing animation workshops with dyslexic kids, teaching them about mnemonic devices, and then the kids were making these animations. It was quite nice. So at one level, you could download the videos that the kids made. So the kids are now teaching other kids, which is cool. But they also had access to workshops and curriculum related to the thing they were developing. So it was a kids art project, but I was like, listen, kids art projects, they're really hard to make happen. How can we make it so that you're engaging educators, you're engaging parents, you're engaging other animators, like how can you make this a thing that you're really growing your audience, and it's not just about pulling on the heartstrings of like people who care about, people with dyslexia, if that makes sense. And we try to pull it up. Maryland. Oops. Oh, there it is, memory checks. So they didn't have a huge goal, they just wanted to fund their one residency. And one thing when I met this, so it was a faculty member at MICA and some of her students. And when I met them, I talked to them for a little while about their work. One of my biggest takeaways was that they were all really charming and sweet and really good animators. So I was like, as much as you can show that off in your project, like, you know, you want to engage people as much as think strategically about your rewards. So that's where we landed.
You make this sound really, really easy, but like first-time users, it's not.
It's not easy, yeah.
It's not. I know that when I launched one project,
Mm-hmm.
I launched 3 with a couple of other artists.
Yeah.
And theirs were funded. They had a really good video. The first one we launched was like how embarrassing video, you know, because we didn't have a budget for video.
Yeah.
We were just like visual artists and we want to do a project.
Right.
How important is the video? I mean, to make your project, you know, or you're communicating with the public. The other part of it is that you really have to have someone that is really doing fundraising, that is really doing the blog part, really keeping it fresh in front of people and promoting it.
Yeah.
The first 3 weeks I was at Flatline because I had any time to, you know, to dedicate to it.
Yeah.
Even though it was a fundraiser.
Yeah.
And it spiked the last week 40% because I paid attention.
Right.
But if I had paid attention from the beginning and not been so busy doing other things, then I know we would have met our goal.
Yeah.
But you make it sound really easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the difference with today's presentation. Usually I talk a lot about that stuff, but I've been noticing that people like you who run projects will bring it up in the Q&A. So yeah, my number 3 tips for running a successful Kickstarter project are making sure you have enough time to tell people about it. Most projects that fail, they just never told anybody. It's huge. It's not magic money. It's not just going to roll in. You do need to tell people. So that's an excellent point. Number 2, setting a goal that you can reach, right? So something that, again, if you remember, 75% to 85% of the people who pledge money to your project are from your own network. So what's an amount of money your network can bear, right? Number 3, and as I've emphasized already, is this idea of the good reward. So this exchange of value so that it feels less like a fundraiser and more like you're getting involved in a creative project. Those are like my top 3 things. And the fact that communication is number 1, I think says a lot. So what I didn't say is video. You do need a good video. And when I say good video, it should have a nice composition, good light, people should be able to hear you. It should be, you know, thoughtfully articulated. But it doesn't necessarily need to be fancy or like a whole like over-the-top presentation. I'm trying to think if I can pull up a good example. I recently worked with a photographer who had no video skills whatsoever. She figured out she knows how to use iMovie though. So she recorded herself saying, "Hello, my name's Barbara. I have this project." And she also hates being on camera like most photographers. So she just did the hi, just so we saw her face, and then immediately cut to a slideshow with a voiceover. And it's her. So she's sort of established the timeline by introducing herself. But then it's just pictures of her work, because what she did know is that she's a great photographer. Not a great video maker, a great photographer. So she just made this really simple, not much happening video, but showing her incredible work and saying, I've taken these photos. I would bring them up, but they're slightly pornographic.
Bring them up.
Okay, I'm gonna get in trouble. So thank you guys. It's actually one of my favorite projects, and I never get to show anybody. So for those of you who, if it offended you, I'm sorry. But this is a woman. She's like, I'm a photographer. I understand about how to set up a good shot. So she told me she set up a ladder in her apartment, pointed some point and shoot camera at herself, and plugged it into her laptop so she could see herself as well, and then pressed record, and then did the slideshow thing. I mean, so I think that's like a, simple version of a video. But it's important to have a good video. It is.
You can always find a 12-year-old to help you.
It's true. It's true. It's true. It's totally true. Yeah.
I wanted to ask if you have seen any impact of Kickstarter on the traditional funding world.
Well, the thing I hear most from the traditional funding world, and I've been really lucky to work closely with the Dodge Foundation in New Jersey, and because when I say lucky, they're the only ones that have not just had behind-the-scenes conversations with me, but they have jumped on board. So I've had a lot of conversations with the traditional funding world, but with the Dodge Foundation, they've said, listen, we have a limited pie. This is about as much money as we can give away. And unfortunately, sometimes that pie shrinks. But the amount of creative people and creative projects in the world continues to grow. And so what do? Do we cut the pie into even smaller slices? Do we give less money to more people? How do we handle this? So they're still giving money away. They still care a lot about what they're doing. They're a very healthy foundation. But they've started a curated page on Kickstarter. And let's see. And they've put like all over their website links to our Kickstarter school. I did a webinar with them. I'm having an open conversation or ongoing conversation with their grantees. We've set up a relationship in that I can help them continue to do what they're doing. I've also had this relationship a little bit with the an Arts Council in New Haven, the Arts Council of New Haven. And again, I've had a lot of behind-the-scenes conversations with arts councils or city funding agencies. That's exactly the same kind of story, but a lot of people have been nervous to sort of point to, this is another resource. But I think that one thing that we often talk about is your projects often need many sources of funding. This is just one source of funding. Maybe then you go to a traditional foundation. Maybe then you have some sort of commercial release if you're lucky, whether it's through a gallery, film, or music, whatever it is. Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations, and I think like that earlier question about industry, there's a lot of sort of like we recognize that this is really important, but we're not really sure where we belong yet. So far, Dodge has been basically supporting projects of their grantees and then curating them to this webpage.
So just following up on that, for projects that are multi-stage projects, are they able to take advantage of this?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's very common in the film world. Film budgets are gigantic. And because the film section of the website is so robust, we've seen more than a few film projects, launch numerous projects. So they'll come and they'll say, hey, help us get started. And then they'll maybe come back and they'll say, hey, wonderful fans who made this incredible movie happen. Guess what? We got into Sundance. Now it's going to cost us $6,000 to get there. And the key is, of course, like taking people along the continuum with you. So you're not just offering the same things over again, but you're sort of re-engaging them. I've actually...
deliverables at each stage, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want to tie it to a specific project or a specific need, and then you want the rewards to reflect that. So I've been working with a guy this is his second Kickstarter project. He just launched it. He did it for issue number 1 of this comic book, and this Kickstarter is for issues 2 through 4. So he's engaging his original backers, obviously, but he's also hoping to bring in new people, so his rewards reflect that, in that you can get issue number 1, or you can just get all 4 issues if you want, if you haven't participated before. Yeah. Yes?
Talk a little bit about enforcement on delivering rewards, or does Kickstarter enforce that? Or what
yeah. We don't enforce. We don't see ourselves as enforcers. We are benevolent watchers. So what we do is if someone writes into customer service and they're like, hey, I pledged money to this project a year ago, I've yet to see the film or the comic or whatever, we'll say, well, have you written to the project creator yet? And sometimes people are like, no, I didn't. And we'll say, well, you should. That's who you have a relationship with. And so then they will, and then they'll get a message back. If they say, yes, I have, and I haven't heard back, or we haven't had an update in a while, then we may step in and send a very nice note to the creator and say, hey, your backers are getting antsy. Where are you? And in our FAQ, where we talk about this. We talk about this. It's a social contract. It's a relationship between backer and creator, and it's really important that on both sides of that, everyone's being communicative. So if backers are feeling antsy, where's my stuff? The first person they should ask is the creator. If creators have a problem or something's not going well, the first person they should reach out to is the backers. So as long as that is maintained, we stay away. It's not until if that starts to break down, that we might step in and send a nice note and encourage more of that.
Could you tell the story also? You told us earlier about the peer pressure model.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier there's a guy who has yet to fulfill on his project, and I'm sure it's coming, but he's kind of gone AWOL. He's sort of hiding out in the corners. We're not sure where he is. But he's had this sort of terrible experience that every time he has a public engagement, he got a lot of press attention at the time of his project. Every time he has a public engagement, his backers like emerge from all over the corners of the internet and like comment and email in, and they're like, this guy hasn't given us our stuff yet. So he pretty much is being shamed into like, I mean, he can't do any public engagements. Like he's off the map. And we talk a lot about that, about how this is why fraud doesn't really happen on the site, because you're putting your name out there, you're putting people's trust, in you at stake. And so if you were to just throw all that away, you'd be burning probably all of your bridges and probably have to hide out in some corner forever. So most people don't. That's just not a thing. That's not a thing that happens on the site. Yes?
I'm curious about generational data. Are you who's participating?
Yeah. We've only we've only just started to track who the backers are. We know where they are a little bit. We know what projects they support, but people kind of opt into their profile, so how much they share through that profile. Or if they Facebook Connect, we could learn a little bit more about them. That said, as I said earlier, 75% to 85% of the people that support a project are from your own network. So if you're in your 20s, likely a lot of people in your 20s are going to be supporting you, plus your family, right? If you're in your 50s, so it's whoever your network is. So there's not really any kind of surprises, I think, there. Yes?
So I saw that the amount collected versus the amount pledged, it looked like a little under 25% difference in pledge versus collected. And how do you deal with that on your end for the funding? How do you recommend proposing projects deal with this likely discrepancy?
Yeah, no, so that's actually, just to clarify what that represented, $200 million pledged means that 200 people have said, I will give $35 to that project. If the project doesn't succeed, then they don't actually have to give the money. So the collected number represents when a project succeeds, everyone is charged at that moment. So the collected number represents the amount of dollars that have been charged, and I think it's at 84% collected right now. So I might have not just updated both my stats. So that's really about our all or nothing model, that stat. It's more about saying the majority of the money that's pledged on Kickstarter actually goes to successful projects. And that's really about this all or nothing thing. People really, once they get going, in fact, we have a statistic that once your project hits just 30% of its goal, it likely will succeed. It has succeeded over 90% of the time statistically. So it's about sort of saying, like, this is about all or nothing.
But is non-payment
yeah, so to answer, in the case, so basically what happens is when you pledge money, you're pledging through Amazon, you're sort of giving your credit card information, you're saying, hey, charge my MasterCard $35 when the time comes. There are, and I've been one of these people, there have been times when the time comes that credit card is expired, or you typed in the number wrong, if you don't already have an existing Amazon account. So then Amazon emails you and says, hey, by the way, we just tried to charge your credit card just like they would in any case. Would you please go in and update it? Very, very, very small percentage of people don't then go in and fix the information. So it's really like minute. Yeah. Once you're pledged, you're in unless you cancel, which people cancel. But again, less people cancel than up their pledges. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit more about the all or nothing model, or has it been thoughts to percentages of many people have the money, or just kind of what's your thinking on what Kickstarter's thinking?
The philosophy of the all or nothing. One is what I was just referring to, this idea that it's an incredible emotional motivator. It's like you have to get to that $4,000 or you're not going to get it at all. Once you get going, once you get rolling, and it looks like you probably are going to succeed, you're really motivated to succeed. And not only are you motivated, but your backers are. So the people who've gotten behind you, supported you, pledged for some reward that they really want, like you're all pushing towards that goal. So that's one, there's the emotional. But two, and I think this is really important, if let's say you're saying, I want to publish 3 issues of my comic book and it's going to cost me $16,000, and let's say you only raise $3,300, how are you going to deliver those rewards? How are you going to come through on all the promises you made? So it's also, when we were setting up the website, it was this very practical idea from our founders that was like, if it's going to cost you $10,000 to do it, you need the $10,000. And let's say if you don't raise it, maybe you don't have a good idea. So in that way, it's as much about testing ideas, and then also if your idea proves worthy that it could actually happen as much as it is about raising money. Yeah. Any other questions? I think we're at about time, right?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.